A young female friend of mine who was helping me with one of my book projects came to me a while back for some relationship advice. She told me she was hesitant to tell her boyfriend how she really felt about him, to open up and be authentic and vulnerable. So I asked her, "What are you afraid might happen?" To which she replied, "Well, what if he doesn't feel the same way?" "What would happen if he didn't?" I responded. "I'm afraid it might break my heart." Then I asked her the most important question of all. If your boyfriend doesn't feel the same way, what would end up being hurt and devastated? Your heart or your ego? "Huh?" she replied after a confused pause. Then I continued. What if the true essence of who you are, your heart, cannot be hurt or broken? What if it is your ego that experiences all the pain and suffering? Within this context, the worst that could happen is that he trashes your ego, but he cannot in any way hurt your heart. She thoughtfully considered this for a moment and then said, "You mean if my ego gets trashed, I should just shut down my heart?" Not a surprising question, considering our culture's habit of shutting down to avoid intense emotions. Quite the opposite, I answered. Should he not reciprocate, imagine quietly observing the devastation of your ego from the perspective of your very big, beautiful, and fully open heart. Think of it as kind of an out-of-body experience, as though you were watching serenely as your ego, which you suddenly realize is not who you really are, is being mangled in a slow-motion car crash. "I never thought of it that way before," she said. The essence of who you really are, your heart, is not part of the crash and can't be hurt, and it is fully alive and available. It merely observes the drama unfolding. Imagine seeing it that way if he doesn't reciprocate your feelings. Does it change anything? "That does take away much of the fear," she answered. The next day my friend reported to me that this one simple distinction completely transformed how she saw her relationship, and it freed her up to be fully authentic with her boyfriend. Not too long ago, I had a chance to experience this empowering shift of perspective for myself. For a few days, I thought the relationship with the love of my life was ending. I adore this woman, and my relationship with her has been instrumental in the launch of my career, helping men, women, and couples achieve extraordinary intimacy. My ego was frankly terrified. My state of shock registered prominently in the white pallor of my face. I was dealing with issues of abandonment, loss, and even hopelessness. Yet, despite all that, I was able to fully accept the possibility that the relationship was ending from the perspective of the quiet, detached, heart-based observer. In so doing, I was genuinely able to feel and know that my heart would always love her without reservation, whether we stayed together or not. That my heart was ready, willing, and able to let her go, if that was what was needed. At that level, I was at peace. My ego kept on having major anxiety attacks past the point of this realization, but they eventually quieted down too, as it reluctantly surrendered to my heart. In my experience, the heart loves unconditionally, is never needy, and can never be hurt or broken. The ego is always seeking reciprocation to fuel its sense of false identity. It is extremely vulnerable to anything that threatens its sense of self-importance or even existence. As relationships come and go, the heart is constant and unwavering, whereas the ego is on an endless roller coaster ride where thrill and terror are just two sides of the same coin. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, this is all bullshit. Is any of this true? Is it true that the heart is the essence of who we are, and that the only thing in life that can be hurt, emotionally speaking, is the ego? This different perspective is just a context or lens through which to see the world of significant relationships. This new context is no more or less true than the traditional perspective of brokenheartedness, which is also a context. Now, ask yourself which context empowers you to love fully without reservation and handle any relationship upset. Which context frees you to explore new relationships fearlessly, and which one enslaves you to the less than lofty goal of avoiding pain? If you want to gain this empowering context, all you have to do is choose it. Every human being has the power to do just that, just as my friend did. However, be ready for your ego to put up a big fight, because it will find this new perspective to be extremely threatening. It will try to convince you that this is all crap. And it is my hope that your heart is the one that will ultimately prevail.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Extraordinary Intimacy with Michael J. Russer. For all speaking, media interviews, and workshop inquiries, go to michaelrusserlive.com. For private intimacy coaching, send an email to coaching@michaelrusserlive.com.